when you're starting out, instead of putting a lot of boundaries and limits on yourself, I think you should just go for it. Try it out. Rather act and do something than sit in your couch and ponder if, can we do this, and maybe we should have.
Heinrich Kipp has more than 20 years of experience running events and parties. He started out initially in Aarhus, where he grew up, and then he later on moved to Copenhagen about like 7 or 8 years ago, where he started the the CPH Deep crew, which is a DJ collective and a event collective consisting of 5 guys. And they actually run one of the most popular monthly parties here in Copenhagen called IG60, which we talked a lot about today. Amongst things, besides talking about IG60, we also talked about his background and how he got into electronic music. We talked about how you start your own parties and your own events, like where do you go with funding and concept development and all these ideas and stuff. We talked about some of the hardships that the CPH Deep and the IG60 parties have faced and how they have managed to bounce back from it, perhaps even stronger than before. We also very quickly touched on the subject of drug culture within the scene and how you should go about that as a event planner and a event and a party host. And yeah, very interesting topic in my opinion. But yeah, well, anyways, all in all, I really do appreciate this conversation today. I think it's a great show we have lined up for you. And yeah, before we get started, I just want to urge you to go to iTunes and like and subscribe and write us a review over there. I'm always interested in hearing what you have to say about the show and how we could get better. So yeah, head on over to iTunes and write a review. It is truly appreciated. And you can of course also hit us up on the official Nim Sound Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and in the comment section of the YouTube video. Yeah, I think that's about it. A conversation with Heinrich Kipp is coming up. You're listening to Nim Sound's Behind the Beat. My name is Kasper Stubb, and this is the show that aspires to inspire electronic musicians to create music, to do better marketing, and gain an overall better understanding of how the music industry works. We talk to people who influence the scene and try to gain an insight into how they work and how they have succeeded. Hopefully, by the end of this show, you will have learned a few tricks of the trade that you can implement to help you gain success in your music career. This is Behind the Beat by Nim Sound. My name is Kasper Stubb, and I bid you a very warm welcome. So, the first thing I want to know is how you got into electronic music, and how you started DJing and got into that whole scene.
Sure. Well, back in the day when I was in high school, I was actually very much into hip hop and all basically black music. I was playing a lot of basketball, and it was just it fitted very well with my self-image. And then a work colleague actually invited me to a underground house party. In an old warehouse. And after that experience, my mind was just blown away. I was there with a couple of other friends, and I was like, it was an entirely new world for me. The music, the people, everything, the atmosphere. It was a totally different vibe than what I was used to. So I was probably around 16 when I slowly began listening to electronic music.
What did you start out listening to back in the day? And where are we geographically in
Aarhus.
We're in Aarhus. Okay. Jutland, Aarhus.
Yeah, all right. Exactly. I think at the time I was actually listening to to pat myself on the shoulder, I actually was blessed with having a good taste from the beginning. Because MTV had a show called Party Zone, where they played house music.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Or house slash a bit more, not necessarily underground dance music, but it was of course inspired by the huge clubbing scene in England and the UK. So I just gravitated towards that. And then slowly in my teens, I came across some folks in Aarhus called frontløberne, like the Chaos Pilots' little brother, basically. And for the people who don't know what Chaos Pilot is, it's like an entrepreneurship. It's a lot of crazy, great people with splendid minds doing so. It's a very creative environment.
Yeah.
But anyway, the little brother frontløberne was hosting a party in a place called Ridhuset in Aarhus. And me and a couple of buddies, we snuck in. There was like a street basketball in imagine like a huge warehouse.
Yeah.
But it was like a thing for youth. So there was different kinds of things. And then there was the street basketball. That was actually why I was there. But then I began to listen to electronic music, and we found out that there was a party there, but it was only for the staff, and they were a bit older than us. So we hid in the basement of the warehouse, and then we stole 3 T-shirts.
For how long did you hide in the basement?
Probably half an hour or something.
Oh, half an hour, yeah.
Yeah, they like everybody was lit out, and then there was only the staff left, and they had a meeting, and then was a party. But so we hid there, and I snuck up and stole 3 T-shirts, which said staff or something like that. And so we like snuck into the crowd of this. There was a lot of volunteers, and then we were suddenly a part of the whole thing, and we were supposed to be like helping with the entrance and stuff like that. But anyways, to keep it short, too late anyways, we suddenly met a lot of people who were into the electronic music scene and the underground in Aarhus. And we met a guy called Torsten, who unfortunately isn't with us anymore. But he was also a part of the frontløberne, and he hosted several underground parties in Aarhus. So we started, me and a couple of friends of mine, one called Jan, another called Babak. We started hanging around the frontløberne and whole that community environment, and held some parties called Neon Zoo.
Neon Zoo,
which was basically UV lights all over the place, and experimenting with stupid stuff like not very cost efficient, but like the bar was on the old laptop. People could order their drinks, and then on the other side of the bar, the bartender would read, "Oh, this is your order." It was just fun stuff. It wasn't very cost efficient.
Were there like a wall between them?
No. So it's even more stupid. Yeah. You couldn't go to the bar in order. You had to type it in on the keyboard. Which makes sense, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But then slowly, I just began getting to know more and more people. Like also the late Kjeld Tolstrup, he was playing in Aarhus at the time. And there was a record shop called Street Dance Records as well in Aarhus. So a lot of DJs was based in Aarhus and did different kinds of things. And actually the first underground party that I mentioned was a guy called Al Lindrum.
I've met him. Yeah,
exactly. He runs the EKG electronic love generator today. But back in the day, he was known as Miss Piggy, and he was playing like skirts and really hard techno and stuff like that. But he did a lot of underground parties, him and his crew.
Yeah.
So just basically there was quite a vibrant scene in Aarhus in the 90s, and then there was like a commercial club.
When in the 90s? When in the 90s are we?
In the mid 90s.
Mid 90s.
Yeah,
All right. Cool. Sorry. Continue.
No worries. I'm just mumbling around. So
it's all good. It's interesting.
There was a commercial club called Blitz, which had like 3 or 4 stories. And in the basement there was a techno trance-ish club, and they were quite upfront. But guys like Nika, who runs Nico Kirstein, who actually runs Stella Polaris today. He was running resident there at the time, and also a guy like Adle from the Brown. I'm not sure if he was resident there, but he also played there, and so many other great DJs as well. So there's quite a nice culture of DJs who was very passionate about. And then of course the Street Dance Records was a really like gathering place for all the DJs. So slowly and certain I grew more and more into that environment, and also started hosting parties myself in Aarhus, and eventually started DJing. There was a lot of parties, a lot of underground places in Aarhus. Actually, the scene was quite vibrant. There was a place called Arp Studio. It was called Arp Studio, where it was like a couple of producers had a studio upstairs, and then there was like an abandoned facility downstairs, and people started doing raves there, and just a lot of crazy places. Like when there was a lot of possibilities, because there was also a lot of industrial places that wasn't torn down yet, so there was a lot of opportunity to do parties back in the day.
That's cool, man. It's always as a guy born in '91, it's always nice to hear about the whole how the whole rave scene was back in the '90s. It sounds so cool, and it sounds very very underground, very sneaking into warehouses, squatting, and creating parties, and creating these like weird things with the laptops and everything. Like it seemed like a very creative environment, whereas I think today it might be there's not a whole lot of opportunities left for doing that, as there's, I think the laws have become a little bit more strict. Stuff like that.
I agree. I mean, me hosting parties today and the whole CPH Deep crew, it's really very challenging to find exciting venues. It's if you go further out of the city, there are of course some areas, but the trick is of course to get people to go there.
Because you want some sort of economic gain for it so you can continue to grow the parties. But I get the struggle. When did you move from Aarhus to Copenhagen? Just to get back to that.
Well, actually, I've been back and forth a couple of times.
Back and forth? All right.
Yeah, because of studies and girlfriends and stuff like that. So I've and then a brief hacienda in London as well.
Cool! I didn't know that.
But that's
okay.
way back then.
Way back.
So I've basically always been very involved and very close to the scene, or not just close, but a part of it, and have had a lot of. There's a lot of people to look up to and get inspired from, because there were so many DJs back then as well, and there was a lot of parties, and I've always gravitated to the more underground kind of flavor, even if it was hip hop or whatever. But I always found that more interesting to be challenged in that way musically.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere or heard somewhere that you used to be a part of some sort of avant-garde festival kind of booking.
Yeah, I was the vice chairman for avant-garde festival called Recession in Aarhus. Which was very experimental. It was very interesting being part of it because you were really challenged both in what music was and what performances was. So it could be like the weirdest performance with people dressing up in crazy costumes and doing weird shit on the stage. Maybe more performance than music, but it was again a playground for different kind of things, but also more established acts as of course like Trendemøller and people like that were invited, and also. There was a band called Ja Confetti back in the day with Anne Trolle, who also sang vocals on Trendemøller. And bands like that, we also were a part of breaking. So a lot of upcoming and weirdly off kind of acts as well. You said, avant-garde, arty-farty, like kind of a vibe. And it's a great way to just meet freaky people who can and does things that you can't do yourself, and just get pure inspiration because they have twisted brains in a good way.
Yeah, quirky minds.
Yeah, exactly.
It's always fun to
definitely
speak with people that have quirky minds.
Yeah, for sure.
You can get really inspired by them.
Yeah.
When was this festival? Was this back in the 90s as well?
It's actually still going.
It's still going.
Just on a much smaller scale. What year are we in? Probably around, when I was active, it's probably around 12 years ago.
12 years ago?
Yeah, okay. Ish, something like that. It was just when it first started out. Also, it actually got help from the Frontløber. They were a part of it, and the whole city was more or less involved with it, and a lot of venues all over the city. Yeah. So but also actually quite a huge influence of electronic music as well in the festival. There was also like some singer-songwriter performance-ish bands, but and it has also changed. And also I was, of course, also one of the ones pushing for more electronic music.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But that was again a love affair for the music.
What were your job description for that festival?
I would say project manager, but it was very hands-on because it was a small festival, so we did a lot of things ourselves. So I had multiple roles, but overall I would probably describe it as project management. It's a good sound I'm making.
With your rings.
I just noticed it. Yeah, perfect.
Never mind.
We've got a small rhythm session going on.
Yeah, we're gonna do a jam session later. Are you actually an event planner or manager by trade? Do you have an education in it?
No, not at all. I guess I just always had a curiosity and just a great interest in being part of the scene and creating something. I think also when you're going to a lot of parties or you're DJing, you always have some ideas. Oh, I wish there was this, or maybe we could do that. I think that's just the way I function, basically. So I'm always if I'm in whatever situation, I'm always thinking of, oh, maybe we could do it like this. I like to turn things around and put it upside down. The challenge is always balancing the creativity with the economy. That's the main challenge, actually. And of course, not all ideas need to cost something, but but
I think that's sort of also you sort of have this natural desire to grow it and see how far you can take the project that you start.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, and I guess I mean the same with your project. I mean, you have you want to see it grow, and then if you have a willingness to create something and a desire for it, then it's a natural step to push it. I mean,
definitely is.
Yeah.
All right, so I kind of want to talk. I kind of want to talk with you about when you last moved to Copenhagen. You said you went back and forth from Aarhus to Copenhagen.
Yeah.
The last time you moved, when was this?
It was probably, what is it? 10 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, the last time.
How long after you moved to Copenhagen? Because you are sort of the creator of CPH Deep, right?
Yeah.
How long after you moved here?
Probably 3 to 4 years after. Again, it was. I came to Copenhagen and I've always been DJing. And of course I started just. I knew a lot of people here, both people who used to live in Aarhus and from parties and just for the common love of electronic music.
Yeah.
So it was quite easy to jump into the scene over here as well.
Yeah.
It was a seamless transition. But basically, one of my high school friends, Babak, as I mentioned, he was living here as well. He moved here several years ago and never moved back to Aarhus. Excuse me. So we started DJing, and he was a resident at the TS Bar, which was Thomas Madvi's place in Studiestræde.
Yeah.
And we've always enjoyed electronic music, and we've experienced so many things together, and it was just a natural step. Why shouldn't we make like a collective and do some more stuff? And then I had a buddy in Aarhus called Samir, and we sort of like, shouldn't we do something? And we said, okay, let's do it. And we talked about what should we call it. And it was like, we agreed on, okay, let's just call it something simple, CPH Deep. And basically the rest is history. Then after a while, Samir was busy with his studies back in Aarhus, and Babak, he became a father. So I was basically the only one in the collective, so it wasn't much of a collective. So I just started reaching out, and actually a funny story. Michael from the collective, I think I did a mix on SoundCloud, and this guy writes me and says, "Wouldn't you mind giving me some credentials for the track that's in your mix?" And I was like, yeah, sure. I didn't remember. I think I just downloaded it, and it wasn't tagged in any way. So I didn't know who the producer was, but it was him.
Uh-huh.
And then we just, okay. He was from Copenhagen. Oh, I'm from Copenhagen, funny enough. And I'm doing this, and I'm thinking about, I have this collective, and we want to do parties and DJ and do different kinds of stuff. So maybe we should have a meeting and talk about it. And he was like, yeah, okay, sure. And then there was a couple of guys also playing at TS called Tim and Kenneth, and I reached out to them, and Michael reached out to someone else, Jonas, a special guest, and we slowly grew. I mean, at one point, I think we were almost 12.
12?
Yeah, 12 people as part of the collective. And it was too much because there was too many chefs, and all with like a creative input.
Wow.
Yeah. It was challenging, and also because it was voluntarily. So there's always been like it's a fine line on how to push people and do things when it's on their own free time.
Yeah.
But basically, we after a couple of years we cut it short, and then we are like 5 now. Mm-hmm. And of course, in that process, we managed to throw different kind of parties at TS Bar and off locations as well. And then at one point, I think it was actually Michael who came across the IG60 place in the meatpacking district.
Yeah, the original IG60.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And of course, it's called IG60 because it was at Inger Slevsgade 60.
Yeah.
And then that was born, and then it really took off because it was a very unique location, and really had a good combination of like underground but also so central. It just everything came together basically.
Yeah, that was a very cool venue. Was the concept from the beginning always to like throw parties, or has it evolved ever since?
The CPH Deep collective?
Yeah, how did it start out? Like, in a concept, in like a holistic philosophy.
Yeah, I think that from the get-go, the plan was like to do parties, and of course we also DJ'd, so it was a no-brainer. And we've done parties before separately and also as a unit. So again, it was a natural step. We've always in the collective looked at how can we expand, how can we do other stuff, because we don't just want to be like event makers. So of course we started our homepage and our blog and then do our podcasts and radio shows and stuff like that. So we're trying to like expand and do different kind of things. Basically just to be a huge part of the scene, because it would be nice to make some money from it in the long run. We all have full-time jobs, so it's just a side project basically. But there's not enough funds for it. We can't pay ourselves basically. So it's a purely passion project, striving to be sustainable. But that's it's always a challenge, because when you're dealing with subculture, I mean the scene in Denmark is quite small. It's
very limited. I mean,
I mean, and of course, there's established places like, of course, Culturebug, the flagship, and of course, ved siden af.
But that's about it, isn't it?
That is it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Double Rainbow in Aarhus is closed down as well, right?
Yeah. They have the Institute for X there, but they're not open on a regular basis. It's more like and then of course there's Vesteråen in Aalborg, and
but I think they've gone a bit towards the more commercialized.
Yeah,
I don't think they have as much freedom as they used to.
No. And then there's, what is it called, Butcher something in Odense.
I think I know what's that called? Is it called?
I can't remember. Something like that. Yeah. But it's very limited. So also our guests, a lot of them.
Those damn rings.
A lot of our guests are exchange students or expats or something like that. Yeah. Of course, there's also a lot of Danes, but we can see that a majority of our guests and also people who follow us on our page is foreigners. So it's quite hard getting a sustainable business. And
like, I mean, whenever I go to like Culturebugs, because they're like their audience or their crowd is very much tourists and stuff like that as well. I always whenever I enter, I always assume like everybody speaks English. I never assume anybody in there speaks Danish, which sometimes gets me in a bit of like, an awkward situation when you speak to a bartender and you go like, hey, a double vodka mate, and they're like, I'm Danish. And they're like,
okay.
Well then,
just vodka mate, please.
Exactly. But you get the point.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, what I kind of like though about how small the Danish scene is that everybody kind of knows everybody.
Yeah.
And everybody's sort of, it seems like people are very supportive of each other.
Yeah,
in a sense.
I would say so. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah,
I think it's evolved. I think I have I have a feeling that people are more knit together. There's always been different crews and parties in Copenhagen, of course. But I would say that the current ones are quite. Not everyone corroborates that frequently, but just a text or we're throwing this party or So there's a lookout in every way possible. Of course, sometimes it's hard with bookings and certain dates, but I think there's a general consensus that it's good to inform the other crews what you're doing if they don't know it beforehand and stuff like that. So there's a mutual respect, I think.
Yeah, because the scene is so small here that when you like throw parties that sort of plays the same music and like melodic techno or something like that, if there are more than just one in Copenhagen, like some of them are actually, somewhat bound to fail in a sense.
Definitely.
Which is a really, really tough environment, because sometimes, as like you have this date, and that's the date you have the venue for, and you can't move it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like a real gamble, and I assume you don't want to be a dick towards everybody else, but you just can't. You just can't do anything about it. I mean, it's a tough business,
and it's also it's the challenge is also like going from I guess for some people we would be considered underground. Of course, if you're like the classic guy from Jutland or girl for that matter who's moving to Copenhagen and they hear about IG60, then they might say, oh, this is really underground. But of course, for like the hardcore ravers on the scene, we're probably not considered very underground. And it's also it's a hard fine line, because when we're expanding and if we want to go bigger, then you're also gathering in some people and a crowd that basically they aren't familiar with the culture, which also sometimes can be challenging, because there's been a lot of talk of like the safe space paradigm and stuff like that. But for us, it's always been it goes without saying, basically. We've always, I mean, the whole if you're familiar with how the electronic music culture works, and if you trace its past to, like, let's say disco and stuff like that, which mainly like blacks and the gay community doing parties, and then it evolved and electronic music came and so on. So it's always been like very supportive of everyone is welcome here. And not everybody understand that. If they're not into the music, they just want to do like, okay, here's like a very prejudiced example, but if you like just come in, I want to do drugs, I want to get wasted, I want to hear like music, and that's it. Then they're not really grasping what the whole idea and vibe of the concept is. So that's a challenge if you want to be more successful and expand. For me, it wouldn't make any sense to like keep doing parties in a small basement with, let's say, 100 people. I mean, I want to do something more. I want to try and test the boundaries, at least to see where can this thing go. And the challenge is, how do we communicate what it is we're trying to sell, in a sense, to people, the right message, that people should respect each other and the culture and behave accordingly.
What do you think just on the topic of on the very light topic of drugs and drug use in the industry? Because I think that one of the main things, and I might take a lot of flack for this, but I think that one of the main things that sort of damaged the scene here in Denmark is the stigma that when you're listening to house or when you're listening to techno music, you are automatically into drugs and drug use. Take, for example, KB18. I've been there so many times to hear like a DJ play, and in my opinion, like a huge DJ. Some like I remember Matt Joe came there, and I was like massive fan of him, and I was so hyped that Matt Joe was there to play, and I talked to a lot of people, and there wasn't a whole lot of people actually like into Matt Joe, didn't even know who the fuck they were, but they were sort of there just because it was the after party place, and it was there like it was sort of legitimized to do drugs there.
Yeah.
Like, what do you see like as the main challenge for being taken seriously as a community? Because I think that's quite damaging to us.
Yeah, I believe that as well. And I mean, I don't do drugs myself. I have a lot of opinion on it. It's a huge topic.
It's a massive topic, and it's a conflicting topic.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, I mean, it's a sad stigma that the electronic music scene has. I mean, there are drugs in all parts of society, and if you go to some of the more commercial clubs, you're going to find drugs as well. And
yeah, because I wonder if the drug consumption is bigger in the techno and house community, or is it just not as taboo?
I think I really can't validate it when I say it, because but
I don't think there's any numbers like statistics on it.
I think there are different kind of drugs. I think people have a tendency in the electronic music scene to use certain drugs, and in other areas of just like going out to commercial clubs, people are using other kinds of drugs. Not predominantly. I can't, because I haven't got any numbers on it.
Of course not.
I mean, a preferred drug amongst many is, of course, MDMA. Also, like the love drug, and it's. I'm quite open to it. I always think before you should, voice your opinion, you should know what you're talking about, because of course there's a lot of like negative, like people don't do drugs and stuff like that. But there's also a lot of research which we don't quite know enough about what influence does it have, and MDMA has been used for therapy, like for
exactly.
So I mean, it's hard for me to say. And I read I don't know, a couple of years ago, a policeman stated that he would rather have people doing like MDMA than doing alcohol, because of course, because of the oxytocin, part of the MDMA is the love drug. Yeah, it's like what's it called? The same. Is it a hormone? I'm not sure if it's the right word I'm using, but the same thing that gets released after sex and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's why people are so lovingly and cuddling and stuff like that. So there's you're tapping into some of those things. So people on MDMA are very friendly.
Yes, very friendly.
And that might also be why there's another atmosphere at those parties. It's a very non-aggressive culture, you could say. And going a bit back in the electronic music scene, and you also like was talking about the second summer of love, and basically it's the newer generation's music. Like there was Woodstock, and people always like under influence of everything. I think humanity has always been, if they're not chewing on bark and licking on frogs or eating mushrooms or doing something.
Yeah, like you should never underestimate like the human urge to like fuck yourself up.
Yeah, you know? I think it's basically just for people to put the ordinary daily life on a break. You just need to zoom out and just say, okay, this is.
And I mean, it's a
huge topic.
It's a massive topic, and I would one day love to like have, you know, I don't know, on this podcast, like a doctor who's an expert in drugs and like talk to him about it, and I'd love that. But
the thing is, I mean, we're in Denmark, of course, we have a very popular drinking culture, to say the least. and there's a lot of side effects evolving around that, and I think the problem is, of course, I would never recommend people doing drugs, and the problem is if young people do drugs, they don't know their own limitations and they don't know what to do. And if you're drinking, let's say, 10 beers or whatever, and you throw up and that's it, you get sick and then you learn from it. But the consequences of doing drugs or mixing them or something
is a lot higher.
Exactly. So in that perspective, it's very difficult.
It is it's a huge topic.
Yeah.
But how do you deal with when you're an event planner and you host an event?
Yeah.
Within this community, how do you deal with, trying to be, taken seriously and try to grow it as, in the public with trying to fund your party? How do you deal with the whole drug culture in this community?
I mean, basically, I think it's a matter of focus.
Matter of focus.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm trying to promote or I'm seeking funds for a project, I'm of course not gonna spill out all the negatives concerning it, because of course there are some negatives that people do in drugs.
Yeah.
But that's just, it's a very small percentage of what the whole thing is. I mean, yes, some people are doing drugs. Yes, some people are getting wasted. Yes, some people do shitty things. Some are violent. Some, I mean, if you take a walk down the city of Copenhagen on a Saturday night, there's a lot of idiots doing stupid things. But that's not the same of saying like everybody is doing stupid things. And the people who are doing whatever they're doing, I just hope that they have some common sense in it. You could say use and misuse, if you can use those terms.
Yeah.
For me, it's more like telling the story that this is really a tight community, and people are coming together. They're very supportive, basically, as I mentioned, for me, when I look at it, it's sort of like reminds me of Woodstock. It's the electronic festivals. I mean, people are coming together for it's very non-violent. It might not be the same political message, but it's people are really coming together because of the music, and it's a close community in that way.
Yeah.
Back in the day, Morten Breum also grew up in Aarhus.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to him at one point about he used to play hip hop and R&B as well. And of course, he also gravitated to electronic music. And he once said, I mean, the vibe was just different, because hip hop, not all hip hop, and not going into West Coast and East Coast, some are more lyrical, but there's also like a lot of gangster rap and all that.
Yeah.
But it was more like there was a lot of testosterone in the air, and it's more like an attitude, like you're fronting and that's not just the culture in the electronic music. It's not like you're battling the guy who's standing across you. So it's just another atmosphere. It's very, and that's why the safe space is very interesting to me, because it's, for me, it is a safe space. It's one of the most pleasant places to be is at an electronic party, because the vibe is just good.
Yeah, I think one of the places I feel most safe is at these raves.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel a lot more unsafe at like a regular mainstream bar, because I have no idea why people are there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, when you go to a rave like the IG60, or when you go to Culture Box or KB18, you're there to dance. You're there to enjoy yourself. So that puts a whole nother mindset when you are actually doing the drugs. I mean, and then when you're doing like a love drug, then you get overexcited, perhaps. Yeah. I kind of I'm not. But yeah, It's a big question.
It's a huge.
It's
topic.
a massive question,
and I've got so many opinions on it. But I think,
and I mean, I digressed completely from my questions here. I just, spur of the moment. I mean, all right, Kipp. I think we're gonna close this one. I think that's a whole nother like podcast topic
definitely.
For another episode. So you're gonna have to come back. We should do a panel discussion at some point.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
That would be kind of a fun thing to do. But that's another time. All right, so it's no secret that CPH Deep is best known for the IG60 party.
Yeah.
I mean, how did you guys go about actually moving from like playing gigs at or hosting parties at like KB18, I assume, and Barken and all these places? How do you go from playing at already established places to saying, hey, we're gonna throw a party at a place that's not really meant for it? Offsite.
I think not just me, but of course all the other guys. That thing where you want to put your own stamp on it. Yeah. I mean, some people are content just, let's say, I'm showing up with my USB stick and it's a CPH Deep party or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think for me personally, it's always been important to do something a bit different, because that's the hardest thing, like having a club, because it's so static. Mm-hmm. It's difficult being very dynamic in it. Where you can say, when we're doing our parties, we can do basically whatever we want within our funds, but nobody is telling us, oh, you can't have that, or you shouldn't wear this or whatever. So it's more the freedom to just do whatever we want and just put our own stamp on it and say this is how we would want to do a party. So I think that was originally what motivated us. We wanted to make a party which we would love to be a part of ourselves. Not anything against the established clubs, but for us it was just more exciting. You could do the limits were just they were broader. I mean, you could play more around. Which of course, when you collaborate with someone or an established club, there are more rules naturally.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like getting to be more established, some of the edge always gets taken off somehow, and that's really, it's hard to balance that. But yeah, that was the original motivation, was like doing our own thing. We wanted to make parties that there wasn't that many of in that caliber that we did, and just fool around, and also like the whole not announcing the lineup, that people should come for the atmosphere and the vibe, because we wanted to make like a community of people saying, okay, this is just a great place where I want to be, and if it's a top international DJ, then that's just the icing on top. But we want to come for the people who comes, and from everything from the sound to the lighting and stuff like that, just the whole package. That's basically what we wanted to create.
And then that turned out to be like a really, really like playing into, was that deliberate when you thought of the concept of not announcing the lineup to sort of play into the fear of missing out mentality?
No, it wasn't deliberate at all. We didn't, we found out that also it had a positive effect in that way, but for us it was, as I mentioned, it was about creating something that was just not held up against, okay, now it's Maceo Plex or Dixon or Solomon playing. It was a playground, and then of course occasionally we put in some more high profile names, but also people also local talent or whatever, just people saying, okay, this is a total package, a party which is great, the vibe is great, the people who comes here are great. So that was the goal. It was just getting away from that poster, just like, okay, people have to come because there's this huge headliner.
Yeah.
We wanted people to come because they generally just thought this was a great place to come.
Yeah.
It was a good party. It was nice people, and everybody come and had a good time.
How do you go from thinking of like, hey, we want to do this offsite party, and actually like, how do you, did you apply for, public funds and grants and stuff like that?
Our biggest challenge has always been our resources. Since we're just like these 5-6 guys with full-time jobs, we haven't had the resources to basically look into funding. So we've been self-funded.
So you like put money into the project yourself from the get-go?
Yeah, we did. And the thing is, I would love to pay everyone more money from our staff to the DJs and our bookings.
Yeah.
But and people from the outside, it can look like, okay, these guys are really laughing all the way to the bank. But in those 5-6 years we've been doing the stuff, we barely make it. And of course, all our time that we're using on the project, which is quite a lot of hours on a weekly basis.
How many hours do you put in each week?
I would say minimum 10, probably 15.
10-15 hours, and then you have when you actually set up that physical party.
Yeah,
that's
we accumulated enough cash to like get a production team to help out with some of the stuff. Because prior to that, in the old ID60 address, we did everything ourselves, and that was like working 40 hours nonstop.
Yeah.
And we didn't get a dime from it, and we still don't get a dime from it. And that's another interesting topic, because we have a fairly entrance fee, we think, but if we compare ourselves to other things, it's difficult. But we built everything from the ground, and it's just expensive as hell. And it's a shame, because we would love to do it cheaper, but we can't cut basically our costs more down. So it's really difficult.
Yeah. How about sponsors? You are sponsored by Sobieski, right?
Yeah, and Mate Mate.
And Mate Mate.
Yeah.
How do you and they sponsor like drinks and stuff like that? If I can ask about this, I don't know if there's any like legal obligation or anything.
No, not per se. I mean, I can't go into the exact amount and details, but in general, I can say it's getting harder and harder to get sponsorships.
How come? Do you think?
It's basically because everything has to be measured. What numbers do you have? How many guests? What's the exposure? So it's all down to the numbers, which basically ends out in sales. Yeah. So if I'm going to give you my product for free or whatever, you can get some funds to do some deco, then I'm only giving you this because I know in the end you're going to sell me more of my own product. And that's basically it. It's a business.
Yeah. I guess it is. When did Mate Mate and Sobieski like contact you, or did you contact them? How do you know when to contact a sponsor, or like? For
us, it's been a learning curve. I mean, we reached out to different kinds, and you find out if these are some sponsors that would invest something in your project or not. Yeah. And of course, again, also how much. And as I said, it's very hard to get like hardcore cash from the sponsors, because in the bigger picture, we're just a tiny little fish. Yeah. I mean, we host event roughly monthly, and the sales we get from one event, let's say, how many bottles of vodka are you selling? I mean, compared to a commercial club who opens 3, 4, or 5 days a week, I mean, it's nothing. I mean, with such a list, for us, it's more of the storytelling and the reach that we we can communicate a message. And if they want to be a part of that story, and if the sponsor can see, okay, we're going for this crowd anyway, we can see there's always been some, like, for example, Heineken, they've been part of a lot of sponsors concerning like electronic music. They decided as a branding strategy that this was the direction they would go, or burn or something like that. So different companies have different strategies, and of course, the closer you are to the same vision, the easier it gets. So that's what we're always looking for. We're looking for people who can see a common story, that we want sort of the common goal. I know, not naively, in the end they just want to sell more of their product, but it's a hard fine line, because we don't just want to plaster our events with commercial things.
No.
It has to be like done in a, for me, like sophisticated way, if you can put it that way. I don't know if you can, and it's difficult because they want their logo out there
all over the place. But it has to be done smoothly. I think.
And that's the trick. That's really the trick. And that's also like, who is the guy you're talking to? Does he or she understand what it is? Do you have a common goal? Okay, maybe they just want to brand themselves like, okay, we want to plaster everybody, but then they have to like grasp the idea of, okay, how is this really in the long run selling more of our product? I mean, for me, it's always about community-based things. I mean, getting to feel an ownership of something. That's where you bind the strong bonds. But that's
when you first opened IG60 and all that, how did you, like, how about permits, like liquor licenses and stuff like that?
Sorry, there's some trouble with the sound here in the studio. I can't quite hear you, Kasper.
So we can't talk about that, I assume.
Well,
you'd rather not?
There's not so much to say. We didn't have any permits.
Didn't have any permits.
Nothing at all.
No. Because...
But it was, of course, private parties. So
private parties, of course.
All good.
Of course. Because I don't know if this is anything that you want to talk about, but I have a question here.
Can you like anonymize?
I can tell. Like
put a bar on it.
Like halfway through, you're just gonna get like a bar across your eyes.
Like a much deeper voice, like, well, okay.
It all started. No, because I've seen you guys, the parties on these massive scales that you've thrown, these private parties. I've seen you fail with them a couple of times when it matters the most. You know, when you have some of like your biggest bookings, you got struck by a police raid once, and another party got struck by a fire drill. Off drill. How do you bounce back from that? I think that's amazing. Like, how do you bounce back?
We've been blessed in some way, because the first example where the police came, we had Patrice Baumel, I believe. And I think he basically had like 15, maybe 20 minutes left of his set. And he was totally cool about it. From him, it was like getting extra street cred or something like that. He was like, this is like underground and stuff like that. So he was super cool about it. But again, of course, the higher you get in the hierarchy, the more established, the more tight with the rules you have to be, and the more or less dynamic you can be. But to answer your question, because there wasn't that many hours left of the party anyways, people still had a very good experience, and they partied there for and in the old place, people came really early because they knew there was queue, they couldn't get in. So people would have been partying for, let's say, 5 hours at least. So in that way, it was just it was sort of a good story, even though it was of course better if it would have lasted 7, but still, I think in general, throwing a party is like storytelling. I mean, when you go to your studies or your work the day after, you're not just telling, "Oh yeah, I had a beer with a friend the other day." Yeah.
Sounds boring as shit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're telling, "Oh, I was at this party, and then the police came in, and that's an exciting story. That's something that doesn't happen every day, hopefully." So in that way, it's a good thing. And also, of course, if let's say the fire drill or the alarm had went off at, let's say, 2, it would have been much harder to bounce back.
Yeah.
But I think it went off at 5:30 or 6.
Yeah, it was late, but it was still, closing the party before time. Yeah.
But I mean, I've experienced it before, also in Aarhus back in the day, where police have shut down parties, and that just sucks. There's nothing, because you still put the same amount of work in it and everything, and then of course you end up paying a lot of money, because you lose a lot of money because you didn't sell anything in the bar, because you only had open 2 hours.
Yeah.
You still had DJ bookings. I mean, there's so much logistics and whatever going on. So it just sucks. You can't.
It just sucks.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you can learn from it? If you're sitting out there in the living room listening to our deep voices, is there anything you can learn from it?
You forgot to mention sexy voices.
Oh yeah,
Deep,
sexy voices.
I can talk a bit slower, maybe. Can you dim the lights?
Oh yeah, sure.
Put on the red wine.
Is there anything mistakes to be avoided?
Yep. Of course, always being prepared as possible. Make a project management plan. We have quite a good plan now. I think we're one of the more professional crews, because we really try to put things in a system.
Yeah.
And we have different tasks. There's still a learning curve. We can get better for sure. But I think the main thing is, if you're sitting in your couch at home, it's just keep believing, as everything else. I mean, I believe whatever you choose to do in life, if you keep at it, if you put in the hours, you're going to eventually be successful. There's always a market for basically whatever it is. As long as you keep, because the thing that drives us is definitely the passion. We love this. It's hard work, and we're not making any money from it at all. So what is it that drives us? It's because we have this passion, and we keep continuing to do it, because there's not that many people that would do a job for 5, 6, 7 years, not get a dime from it, and waste every weekend or 40 hours working straight for other people to party. So it has to come from within, something that's really depth filled, and if you keep on working, I think you will eventually have success. And of course, you have to learn from your different mistakes on that journey. We've been better at planning stuff, and we are getting better doing our economics and all those kind of little details. Make a plan, basically. I mean, when we started our first parties, we didn't have any plans. We were like, hey, throw in some speakers and a mixer and some turntables, and we're off. And you are good. It's fine. But again, if you want to grow and be more successful, you have to make a plan, a business plan, and a plan for the event, for the night. And also in this era with the social media, you have to think about, okay, what can we do to get more people to notice us, or remind them then that they should come to this party instead of this party. And so planning is everything, basically, if you want to be successful.
Yeah. I think we're somewhat running out of time now. I still have a few questions for you, though. Normally I ask a question of what's your favorite plugin at the moment? But since you don't really produce music, I'm gonna change it up a bit and just ask you two questions.
What's your favorite butt plug at the moment?
Yes. What kind of brand?
Well,
no. I have one here that what are some of the things you wish you knew when you first got started back in the day? A mistake to avoid. You wish, if you could go back to a young Kipp and tell him, hey, don't do this.
I don't have many of those experiences because I think the beauty in evolving and getting better is just running headfirst into those mistakes, because that tendency you have that you can't do nothing wrong, that's really what drives a project. So just instead of, when you're starting out, instead of putting a lot of boundaries and limits on yourself, I think you should just go for it. Try it out. Rather act and do something than sit in your couch and ponder if, can we do this, and maybe we should have, because I would never believe I've gone so far with this project. If I had used my common sense, I would never have wasted so many hours. So you can also rationalize, which can bring down all the ideas. Sometimes you just have to go for it and take a chance. The only thing I would say would work as an advantage is it's be clear of your vision as fast as you can. The younger you are, and the quicker you can say, okay, this is my goal. Then you can quicker get to that point, and you can jump some steps because you already know, okay, this is where I want to end. So if you have a vision, then try to see, okay, if in my wildest dreams, where do I want this project? And if I say it's over here, okay, then draw up the steps to how to get there, or else you'll just be fumbling around in the blinds. So that's an easier way and a quicker way to get there. You can save a lot of time. But again, the journey that I've had, it's been very fun, very entertaining. It has some crazy stories, and I wouldn't miss those. Of course, there are some situations where I say, okay,
could have been without.
That would be better just to skip those steps. But all in all, just go for it. Act, do it. Get out of the bed and just go for it. Instead of pondering if I could and should I, or maybe just try it out. And maybe you fail miserably, but then you learn from that. But of course, the most important thing is that you just reflect on what has happened. Why did this fail? Or why does it go so well? Think about those steps, and that goes for everything, whether it's events or career or whatever. I mean, you have to reflect on the things you do to be better. I mean, whether you fail or succeed, then always evaluate on the steps leading up to that point.
Now, before we go, I just want to ask you, where can we find Kipp, the DJ, online?
Well, I have a very small, not that much attention paid Facebook page. Just Facebook/Kipp. And then I have a Mixcloud, Mixcloud/Kipp, oddly enough, where I just have different kinds of mixes. I haven't done that much work in promoting myself. I've been the more laid-back event-making role. But of course, I enjoy the DJing part, and then have DJed for ages. So it's always good to...
I saw you post something about you actually charting or something like that on Mixcloud.
Yeah. Well, Mixcloud, of course, is not the craziest of platforms, but I uploaded my closing set from the last IG60 party, and then and I just got a notification in my inbox that I was third on this on the techno chart, and funny enough, Adam Beyer was number one and I was number 3, so I just posted gaining on Adam Beyer.
I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It might not be Mixcloud, might not be the craziest platform, but it's still kind of cool that you outranked what. Was it Nicole Modave?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think that's kind of cool. Where can we connect with the CPH Deep?
CPHdeep.com.
Yeah, that's your blog.
Yeah, that's our blog, and we also have our podcast at iTunes. Just search for CPH Deep, basically. And then, of course, we have our Facebook page where we have different kind of content, from funny stuff to... whatever basically concerns the electronic music scene, and also different kinds of events that we recommend. So Facebook /CPH Deep.
And we're of course gonna link to everything in the description and on Facebook and all that. Remember to tag properly and all that jazz.
Of course.
Yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me.
You're welcome.
It's been a pleasure. That was such a fun conversation with Kipp. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. And I hope you got some tangible advice that perhaps you can implement today, so that you can go out and host your own parties. I'm looking forward to attending your party in the future. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love to hear from you, even if you... I'm probably gonna regret this. Even if you fucking hate the show. Constructive criticism is the only way I and this show can actually become better. So please let me know your thoughts on iTunes, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or in the comment section on YouTube. Looking forward to hearing from you. And on that note, I think that's it for today. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to keep at it and stay passionate. I will see you when I see you. Bye.